What's up, everybody? Welcome to volume two of Russ Rants. Um, had to get on here again. Sonny put out a video yesterday, uh, or a pod yesterday about Illinois Purdue coming up tonight. Kind of his preview and his thoughts on some things, and so I wanted to respond to that a little bit. Before we get started, I want to thank, as always, our sponsors, Martin Vintage. Go check them out for some cool vintage Purdue stuff. Use code BXP at checkout for 10% off. Follow them on socials so you can see all the latest things that have come out. And sometimes they run a better special than even 10% off. So go check them out. Check out CB Analytics as well. Some of the stats I got were from there that we'll be going over today. And they just got a lot of great stuff over there. Any stat you want, you can find it there. You can get a membership for just Purdue or just Illinois, just one school, or you can upgrade and get the Big Ten, get the whole nation, see all the stats you want over there. Also, go check out Cincy Blitz boards. Got a nice one behind me here. They'll design a nice board for you for this really cool yard game that they've got. That's kind of like cornhole meets Yahtzee meets a lot of different things. Can be used at tailgates, parties, hangouts, just with the family, whatever. They're really responsive. They're really great working with you on the design on that. So, but like I said, I'm going to do another rant here. Just myself. Kind of respond to some things that Sonny said. Sonny over at Illini Cast, if you haven't checked him out, go check him out. He's a really good dude. Has a lot of really good takes. Very level headed. A lot of respect for Purdue and the program. So he's one of the more reasonable fans that you could watch other pods and other content from. He does have some pretty strong Illinois takes, homer takes, but that's kind of the best fan you could ask for, right? He's very respectful, has a lot of good takes, puts out a lot of good content, but also sticks up for his team, his coach, and defends them and makes cases for them to win all the awards that you could want your team or your players to win. So, but I just wanted to respond to some things that he said, some homer takes, and also kind of give a preview and a little bit maybe of a Purdue take on how the game's going to go today. I do want to say again, I said this last time that we did this with an Illinois response or a Sunday response that I'm happy that there are Purdue fans out there that are so proud of this program, that they want to defend this program, that they want to stick up for Painter and for these players, for Edie, because there is a lot of negative on there. Sonny talked about that, and you guys can see that anywhere on Twitter, any social media, and the algorithms are kind of set to respond to what you respond to. Like they watch, imagine they're basically watching your screen, like your screen sharing with them. So things that you even linger on, things that you expand, if you are on Twitter a lot or on X a lot, you can see how many people expanded your tweet, right? Like just looked at it. They don't even have to like it, share it, retweet it, anything. They can just look at it and it knows, hey, this person's responded to this, and they're going to put more of that content on your feed. So if you do respond to those few negative fans out there, that's what you're going to see a lot of because, X, Twitter, these social media apps, they want you to use them more often. So I don't think that the fans, a lot of the fans that you've interacted with, Sonny, or even maybe some of the Illinois fans that have interacted with, is indicative of 90% of the program and the fans. I do think that Purdue fans do take this game seriously. They do feel like Illinois takes it more seriously than Purdue does because Purdue has locked up the Big Ten championship, right? Or at least a share of it. They don't want to share it, so it's definitely a game we still want to win. But you've seen what happens in the Big Ten this year, right? Like 80% of home teams or home games have been won by the home team 80% of the time in this season in the Big Ten. It's tough to win on the road in the Big Ten, and this is definitely a matchup of two teams that are close enough matched up that the home team should be favored. Um, I think it's a series that you put up the point that if we play 5 matchups, that Purdue probably wins 3 of them, and I'd say that's probably correct. Especially if you play like 2 at Mackey, 2 at Illinois, and 1 at a neutral court. I think a neutral court game, all things being equal, I think Purdue does have the edge, but it's definitely going to be tough for Purdue to pull it out at Illinois tonight. Doesn't mean they can't, no, because they did it last year, right? They pulled out last year. They've done it before, and I do think Purdue fans see us as playing with house money tonight. That it's not a win we absolutely have to have. If we lose this, we definitely want to win Wisconsin or, um, see Illinois maybe lose their final game, so we don't have to share the title, but a lot of the response from Purdue fans is because Illinois fans, and particularly the coach, and appreciate it, Dylan. What up, handsome? Thanks, man. But I think that Illinois coach Brad Underwood and a certain parent of a player, DGL, got very vocal on Twitter, and Purdue fans, they're not just defensive and proud of the program, but when you poke them, they're going to poke back. They're going to strike back. So like the Coleman Hawkins of the world, that they want to pay attention to everything Purdue's doing and respond to it. Purdue fans are not going to take that line down. They're going to remember it. They're going to bookmark it. They're going to pull the receipts, and that I think is what's led to a lot of the Twitter action, the social media action between these two teams, these two fan bases this year. But enough of that. We're going to kind of get to some of these responses here. So, one of the things you said was, Purdue has to score 90. And I've heard this take. Purdue has to score 90 to beat Illinois. Illinois is a very efficient offense. They're elite offensively. I heard a lot of people talk about this being the best Illinois offense ever, highest scoring since like I think early 90s. And that may be true. But interestingly enough, they're the third most elite offense in the country. The first elite offense is Alabama. Second is Purdue. So as much as this, it seems like a repeated narrative, right? Purdue fans have heard it with Arizona. Oh, they're so athletic, they're so elite, they're so fast, they have so many shooters. How's Purdue going to respond? Alabama, right? Alabama, they're an elite shooting team. They're the number one offense per Ken Palm. How's Purdue going to respond? Well, we responded in those games and won those games, right? Like Alabama even hit 19 threes against us, and we still pulled it out. So this is not anything new for Purdue to play an elite offense. And the biggest thing going against Illinois is, their defense is very suspect, right? They're around, I think, high 90s, mid 90s in defensive efficiency, which is not great, right? When you give up 90 plus points to, a Minnesota team, it's not great. And I don't think that there's enough credit given to the all-round attack of this Purdue offense this year. There's a lot of, you know, Braden Smith's obviously made a lot of noise not making the top 10 Kuzi list, and he makes the final 5 list, as well as Lance Jones and the impact he's had because he's kind of attached to Damask, right? One of the big weapons on Illinois. So I think that some credit is given, but there's talk even about Edie and if he gets in foul trouble in this game, which it could happen because it happened last game, right? But then what happens? Kaufman Rain comes in and scores 20 plus points. So I think that, yes, Purdue's gonna have a lot of trouble stopping this Illinois offense for sure. But if you watch the Illinois Wisconsin game, one thing that was very frustrating about it was Wisconsin just let Illinois play their ISO ball, put 5 guys on the perimeter, play one-on-one defense, and not help at all. Purdue will not do that. Painter's not going to sit there and watch somebody get beat one-on-one over and over. They're going to make you at least pass the ball. Purdue's not going to just let, Damask play booty ball. They're not going to just let Terrence Shannon Jr. run wild and do whatever he wants to do. Yes, will we get some foul trouble? Possibly. Possibly. Terrence Shannon Jr. is equally as hard to guard as what Edie is. He's hard to prepare for. He plays very fast. He plays, borderline out of control, but he puts the call on the refs, right? Like he puts them in a position where they have to make a call. Same thing that Edie does a lot of times. Like when somebody gets their arm in on Edie, yes, does Edie turn in a way that that arm kind of gets locked in there? Sure, but guards do that on the perimeter, right? All the time. Like you see a guard defensively have their hand out. That guard on offense will sweep their hands through or their ball through to make that contact to force the official to make that call. Now, is the defender necessarily causing the contact or doing anything wrong by just having their hand there? Not necessarily, but you put yourself in a position where the offensive player can take advantage of that. That's still going to be a foul, regardless of whether you played it right or played good defense. Good offense and great offense is always going to beat good defense or great defense. You saw that again in the Wisconsin game. Tyler Wall, I think, played good defense against Damask. He was in good position, but Damask just was on that night, right? Hitting fadeaways, hitting shots over the top of Wall that are very difficult, low percentage shots, and they were just going in. But I want to get on the foul calls, and something that was talked about, like I said, before Illinois even played us. I think Illinois still had a game in the middle of the week before they played Purdue, and Underwood was already talking about the fouls, was already talking about, well, UD just gets all the calls, and I don't know how you're supposed to play defense, and they need to figure out this officiating thing. Well, I'm going to bring up Kofi again, like I did last time. Kofi led the country in fouls being drawn his final season as well, right? So to sit there and act like Edie is this, unicorn that's never been officiated. No, there's never been a player officiated this way. It's something completely unique. It's surprising to hear that the loudest from the Illinois fan base because they've literally experienced that same thing, but they just want to forget about it for some reason. They want to act like Kofi didn't get the respect that he deserved, and maybe there were calls that he should have gotten that he didn't. But let's not, let's call a spade, right? Let's call it out and say, Kofi did still get 100th percentile treatment in the country, leading the country in fouls drawn the same way that Edie is. Now Edie's drawing a few more, but maybe Edie's just a better player. Maybe he's just more experienced. He is bigger. He is taller. He is, I think, more skilled, has better footwork. So he's drawing more fouls. But don't act like Kofi or any other player gets different treatment. Painter in Purdue has never asked for different treatment. They never asked for Edie to be officiated differently. They want to be officiated the same. They want a foul that's going to be a foul on a 6'6" guy or a 6'10" post guy. They want that same foul called on Edie or being called on the defender on Edie. Because just because Edie's big and he can take more contact and he can take two hands in the back doesn't mean it's not a foul. When you put two hands in the middle of an offensive post player's back, it's an automatic foul regardless of what their size is. So let's go ahead and move on to Underwood. Underwood versus Painter. So this is one of the more interesting takes I've heard that several Illinois fans and Illinois content out there wants to basically paint it like Underwood and Painter are the same coach. They have the same accomplishments. They're right there. They haven't had postseason success. They've had a lot of regular season success, and Underwood deserves just as much respect as Painter. I strongly disagree. I think they are closer. Underwood is obviously the coach of a top 15 team, so he's a good coach. He is one of the top coaches in the Big Ten. But while there might be a slight margin between Painter and Underwood, it's a lot to try to cover that margin, if that makes sense. The stats may be close as far as win-loss, but when you look at certain things, you look at the tail of the tape. I just wanna go down a few things here. So, Painter has won 20 plus games in 8 of the last 10 seasons. A lot is made of Underwood and, "Oh, well, the last 4 or 5 years have been great." Yeah, let's just throw out the first 2 years at Illinois. Let's just throw out his time at Stephen F. Austin or whatever. Underwood has never made a Sweet 16. Never. Painter has made 4 of the last 6 Sweet 16s. Yes, we haven't made a Final Four, that's correct. But it's very different to say neither one of them have postseason success when one team, one coach has never made the second weekend. Not at Stephen F. Austin, not at Oklahoma State, not at Illinois. He has not made the second weekend ever. Painter's made the Elite Eight. He's made, I think, was it 6 total Sweet 16s? 4 of the last 6. Underwood has not made any. So, like I said, I made it a little tail of the tape here. I'm gonna run down here. So, Conference Coach of the Year awards. Painter has won 6 of them. Now, one of them was Missouri Valley, so we'll say 5 Big Ten awards. Underwood has won 0 Big Ten Coach of the Year awards. 3 in the Southland, sure, 7 of Austin. But National Coach of the Year, Painter's actually won National Coach of the Year once. Underwood, not won it at all. Big Ten regular season titles. Underwood has won 1, Painter's won 5, including 4 of the last 8. So even if you want to play recency bias and say, well, Painter's been at Purdue longer, well, for the last 8 years, Purdue has won either share or the outright title. Underwood's done it once. So we want to talk about, oh, well, the last 5 seasons, he's got the most wins. Well, there's 2 issues with that. One is that's the only range that you can say he's won more games than Painter, and that's by like 2 games. It's like 68 to 66 in that time frame. If you go more recently, or if you go the whole time that Underwood's been at Illinois, or the last 6 years, or the last 3 years, every other time frame, Painter has more wins. So it's a very cherry pick set. So if you want to say recency bias that the last 4 or 5 years they've both been great coaches, okay, well, Painter has won more games and more championships even the last recent years. And if you go through the whole tenure of Underwood at Illinois. So let's go head to head, right? A lot is made of Underwood. Well, he's undefeated against Greg Gard. He's undefeated against Juwan Howard. Those coaches won Coach of the Year. Well, those coaches and those teams had flash in the pan years, right? And that's kind of what the Coach of the Year award has become in the Big Ten, is when you have low expectations and you greatly exceed them, you're automatically a front runner and possibly win the award for Coach of the Year in the Big Ten. So those programs are not great programs, right? Like, Illinois has won a lot of games recently in the last 5 years. Wisconsin, Michigan are not in that class. Let's talk about, you brought it up, Sonny, on the line I cast. Underwood lost to Penn State 3 times last year. So we're going to cherry pick. Hey, these are the coaches he's really good against. We're not going to point out that he's only 3-6 against Matt Painter and he's lost 4 straight. So again, yeah, you want to take out the first couple years, but there's 4 straight wins that Purdue has beat Illinois, 4 straight games. So, again, you're kind of cherry picking a range to sit there and say, hey, Underwood's better than Painter. Let's go All Americans. This is a really good one. All Americans, I'll give you a second to think about how many All Americans Purdue has had under Painter versus Illinois, or really Underwood's entire tenure as a coach, because it's not close. So Painter has had not just double digit All Americans at Purdue, he's had 20 different guys in different seasons honored as an All American at some level. Underwood has had 3 guys or 3 All American selections and honorees, and 2 of those are Kofi Coburn. So 2 separate years Kofi, 1 year of Io, and that's it. Big Ten Player of the Year awards, we've had 3 under Painter, 0 for Underwood. And one of the big kickers that I like to talk about or like to think about is Painter is still only 53 years old. He's a young guy. He could coach for another 10, 15 years possibly. Underwood is now 60. So we're talking about Underwood like he's turning the program around, like he's heading the right direction, like he's really going to get this Illinois program to the top of the Big Ten, knock off Purdue. He should be coach of the year. To me, that's a um, little misleading, I will say, because he has just recently got to the head coaching ranks in his 50s, right? He didn't get his first head coach job till he was what, 50, 51, and that was a Stephen F. Austin. So to sit there and act like, well, this Illinois program is about to knock off Purdue and get even better. Well, I, Purdue's got the younger coach. They've got the better recent success when you go back the last 3 or 4 years. And look at next year's class. Next year's class Purdue's got coming in is going to replenish this, and they could be a number one team and a number one seed again next year. So, I just like I said, I respect Sonny. He does great work over there. He's awesome. I love working with him. But we got to answer some of these homer takes as Purdue fans and call a spade because yes, Purdue likely could. And if I had to bet my house, I really wouldn't want to make a bet on tonight's game. I would not be surprised if Purdue loses by 10. I would not be surprised if Purdue wins by 10. It should be a good game tonight. It should be a hard fought game. Illinois should be the favorites. They should have the home court advantage. And I would be also interested to see if they storm the court if they beat Purdue. I think that's a I would say 50-50 possibility considering the recent issues and considering the fact that Illinois is actually ranked high, and they're the favored team. So I think that kind of is facts on the side of against a court storm. I don't think that it will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. Um, if anybody else has any other thoughts, we'll let a few other people maybe get in here. Appreciate those of you that kind of stuck with us for today's episode and also through last week's. I know we had some issues with last week's broadcast and getting live, but yeah, I really don't understand. The biggest thing is Illinois, Purdue. They're both great programs. They're both the top 2 teams clearly in the Big Ten, but Illinois could still end up finishing 4 games back of Purdue in the Big Ten race. So to sit there and put them in the same bucket and just say, hey, they're pretty close. Like Illinois could knock them off tonight, and then that proves that Illinois is pretty much just the same team as Purdue. I don't buy that. The home teams in the Big Ten, like I said, have won 80% of the games. 80% of the Big Ten games have been won by the home team this year. So to sit there and put any weight in this game if Purdue does lose, that's where I think Purdue fans maybe come off as, oh, they don't care about this game, but this is Illinois Super Bowl. Illinois has started this whole We're more worried about Purdue than we are ourselves, right? Like Coleman Hawkins, anytime Purdue slips up, you see that Joker meme, you see something happening, and then Illinois stumbles on a Penn State. So, and then you see Underwood coming out a week before they played us, complain about the refs and Edie, complain about how Purdue's officiated before they've even played Purdue. So it's, I can't really say I had the same respect for Underwood and for Hawkins that some of the Illinois fans do for Edie and Painter. And, you know, I'm not going to apologize for that. It's just, it's hard to, one, respect a player that is constantly on social media, that's constantly egging on the other team, that's, you know, putting on the other team's shirt. You look at Post Maryland, throwing up the bird, and then wants to say, "Oh, I'm really a good guy. I'm really a nice guy. I don't understand where the hate comes from." Well, it comes from every play that you don't score, you're complaining to the refs and you're not getting back on defense. There was plays against Wisconsin that he's literally complaining to the ref about the call or not getting the call, and the ball's right behind him still in play. And it's just like I don't understand what you're doing as a player to do that. You know, Edie is much less, he's gotten frustrated. It's gotten his under skin, some of the calls that he doesn't get, but I don't see him going to that level. And the way that Underwood constantly almost goes to the Fran McCaffrey level, getting in the ref's face or getting at the refs, I I don't understand how we don't see more of a response from officials. I'm not necessarily saying that it should always be a technical foul, that they should not let the refs or let the coaches vent a little bit. That should be something that should be allowed. But, I don't understand how a coach can get that on official and have the foul calls be like 7-2, and all of a sudden there's 5 straight foul calls and it gets evened up. It shouldn't happen. Foul calls should not be something that gets evened up in any sport. Penalties shouldn't be evened up in football. You shouldn't sit there and say, "Well, we called a holding penalty on this drive. We got to call a holding penalty on the next drive when the other team has the ball." That's ridiculous. You call the game as it is. Painter and Purdue have constantly played, especially the last couple of years, this style where they're going to force a low percentage shot as they can and not foul, because fouling a team bails them out. A lot of teams in this country have guys that shoot 70, 80%, 90% from the free throw line. We'd rather force a mid 30s, mid 40s percentage shot than give you 2 free throws. And contrary to that, when Purdue has the ball, when Edie's got the ball, the game plan is to just blitz the crap out of him and throw 2, 3 guys at him, to blitz the crap out of Braden on a ball screen, to cause as much commotion, as much action as they can to keep him from getting the ball to Edie. And that's going to cause more fouls. Just bottom line is, if you play a more aggressive style defense, like teams have to against Purdue, because if you sit back on Edie, if you sit back on Braden, we are going to eat you alive. It's not going to be pretty. You've got to almost put the ball in the ref's court as a defense against Purdue and make them either make the call or say, "Hey, we're not going to call a foul on every play," which they're not. They're not going to call a foul on every play. And that's kind of the way that teams play Purdue. And that's why you see the foul discrepancies. That's why you see the free throw discrepancies. And that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough, that Purdue plays a very different style of defense than teams play against Purdue. Purdue doesn't want to foul. Purdue doesn't want to put you at the free throw line. They want to get that free throw line advantage. And at the same time, Edie is that type of player that you have to either foul him or he's going to drop 35 on you. That's what happens against Michigan State. Michigan State, Edie averages over 30 points a game against them the last 2 years because they don't like the double. They want to think that they can play him one on one a lot of times, and that never ends well for that team. So that's about all I got. I know it's kind of all over the place. It's a solo thing, still getting kind of used to this, but I had to come out and defend my Boilers. Had to come out and defend my coach Painter, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. I'm not going to predict what may happen or not happen tonight. I do think it should be a good game. It'll be back and forth. Neither team can really rest on their laurels. Um, we're talking about, like I said, the second most efficient offense in Purdue and the third most efficient offense in Illinois. It likely could be a game in the 90s, could be in the 80s. You look at, they're in similar positions offensively as far as their efficiency rankings. And last game was what, 83-78. So I don't think that Purdue has to score 90, but they definitely can. Purdue dropped 96 on Rutgers, and people laugh every time I bring that up. But Rutgers was the second most efficient defensive team in the country when we played them, and we dropped 96 points on them. So, Purdue can score with anybody. Purdue has just as many elite shooters as what Illinois does. they don't play the fast pace necessarily that Illinois does. So I definitely see there's going to be a battle. And as much as Purdue will have to figure out how to guard 5 3-point shooters on the perimeter, Illinois is going to have to turn around and figure out how to stop Edie and figure out how to stop that high pick and roll. Because as much as people, like I said, put into how is Purdue going to stop this team? Well, this team's athletic. This team can shoot. This team can run. Okay, well, Purdue's played all those type of teams and beat them because when we get the ball back, you got to turn around and play defense on us the way we play offense. And I would expect Edie to score more from the block more efficiently than pretty much anybody in this country could shoot from three, unless they're wide open, which we don't give a lot of open threes. We usually contest about every shot that we can on defense. And I think that's what it comes down to is can you hit threes at a higher rate tonight in Illinois than Edie can score from the block? And can Edie stay out of foul trouble when Shannon's driving, when Domas gets in the paint, when Hawkins gets in the paint? If they do that, maybe Illinois plays an Alabama style, which Alabama did against us, and then they complain about the refs, but they took 70% of their shots from 3-point range. So does Illinois do that and just say, hey, we're going to hope we hit more threes than Edie does twos, and we're going to hope that he doesn't get our guys in foul trouble? Because that's the other side of it. You're not just talking about can Edie score more efficiently on offense than Illinois can from three. You're talking about can Edie get them enough foul trouble that now they're having to change their personnel enough and change the way they play enough that it affects the game plan and produce favor as well. So, I had one more note for kind of Sunny on here. So we talked about the 18 win season and the 16 win season that Purdue had. One thing that's unique about Purdue as well is that we've scheduled, especially in recent years, we've scheduled much tougher. We've tried to prepare for everything because Painter is well aware of the different styles between the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament, and understands that that's part of the reason that we may have struggled in the NCAA tournament is we see one style play in the Big Ten, and that's the style play we have to prepare for because 60-70% of our games are in the Big Ten. So we have to prepare for that style because it's the majority of games. But he understands that we've also got to be prepared to turn around and play a different style in the NCAA tournament. And that's why we played these teams like at Arizona, at Alabama, even scrimmage against teams like West Virginia in the past, like in Arkansas this year, because he does prepare for every outcome that he can. But the priority is always going to be the Big Ten. But the year that we won 18 games in the Big Ten, right? We finished fourth in the Big Ten, I think, that year, won maybe 12 league games. We were a 4 seed because we scheduled difficultly. We have a talented roster, and we're not in the position that some of these teams in the Big Ten that have 16, 17, 18 wins on the cusp of that, they're looking at being on the outside in, looking at the NCAA tournament. Whereas when Purdue was in that shape, they got a 4 seed in the tournament. So wins are not always everything. There's teams that are going to win 17, 18, 19 games and win and make the tournament. So a 20-win season is a good bar to have, sure, but who are you beating, right? Like you could schedule tough even in the non-con, but have 8 non-conference wins against Ball State, Eastern Illinois, Central Michigan, whatever. Like those wins aren't always indicative. Like you're not winning 20 games in conference play. We have a 20-game conference schedule. Nobody has ever run the table or recently run the table. I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to get that fan base involved. But you're still winning a lot of your games, or at least a third or so of your games against non-conference opponents. So to sit there and compare how many games you win in a season compared to another coach is not necessarily. It's kind of a disservice to the schedule, I should say. So that's all I really got. Appreciate you all if you kind of suffered through this. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out this solo thing. Look forward to getting together with the guys tonight. Hopefully, celebrating a Purdue win. We are going to try to go live after the game. If we lose, I'm sure that drops the percentage of our chances of going live. But I'll try to get on with Sonny, call into his show and kind of give them their props and their flowers if they do knock us off tonight. So should be a good game. Hopefully, it's a good game. Hopefully, everybody stays healthy. Knock on wood. And we have a good rest of the season and a good March. And yeah, we'll see y'all either tonight or in the near future over at Boiler Express. See y'all later.